This PowerPoint is an edited version of a much longer training from the Center for Social-Emotional Foundations of Early Learning, also known as CEFL. The content comes from the pyramid model, an evidence-based model of social-emotional competence for early childhood educators. The pyramid model is a model that represents components of adult behavior and strategies that parents, caregivers, teachers, and other professionals can use to assist children in developing social-emotional competence. The pyramid is essentially a public health model that ensures that all infants and toddlers receive the level of support they need to be successful and or to maximize their social-emotional development. There is a centralized focus or recognition that families, caregivers, and young children come to the relationship with unique strengths and needs that both grow and change over time. The adult's capacity to be sensitive and responsive supports a young child's growth and development. As the young child grows and develops, the adult also changes and grows. This PowerPoint will focus on nurturing and responsive relationships to support the social development for all children. Most social-emotional development and behavior is promoted through positive preventive measures, meaning that most children will develop social-emotional skills and behavior through positive relationships with caregivers. Most children's behavior, even challenging behavior, does not actually require intensive intervention. This section will include a description of the importance of social and emotional development, a definition of social and emotional development, information about how social and emotional skills develop, and strategies to support social and emotional development. Why focus on social and emotional development of young children? Social and emotional development not only impacts all other areas of growth and development, it is the foundation upon which all future development is built. What caregivers share with and give infants and toddlers today, they will carry inside themselves forever. Social and emotional development sets the playing field for school readiness and lifelong success. Research shows that children who have healthy social and emotional skills tend to learn better, are more likely to stay in school, and will be better able to make and keep lifelong friends. The CEFL definition of social-emotional development says that the developing capacity of the child from birth through 5 is to form close and secure relationships, experience, regulate, and express emotions in social and culturally appropriate ways, and explore the environment and learn, all in the context of their family, community, and culture. The definition also includes the idea that caregivers promote healthy development by working to support social-emotional wellness in all young children and make every effort to prevent the occurrence or escalation of social-emotional problems in children at risk, identifying and working to remediate problems that surface, and when necessary, referring children and their families to appropriate services. In other words, it is our job as caregivers to support each child's social-emotional development by individualizing the level of care, that is, promotion, prevention, or, if necessary, intervention, to meet the child's and family's needs. Developing capacity. Infants and toddlers grow and change quickly, gaining more skills in all areas of development, physical, cognitive, and social-emotional. Think about the different abilities of a newborn, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old. What is appropriate social-emotional development must be constantly viewed through the lens of what is appropriate for the child's development. For example, we would not expect a 1-year-old to describe how he is feeling in words or sentences, and we would expect that a 3-year-old would continue to have difficulty regulating her own emotions, but would be much better able to do so than an 18-month-old. Another example could be that we would not expect a 6-month-old to get up and walk around the room, but we would not be surprised to see a 2-year-old to do this. Social-emotional development grows based on abilities and learning over time. It is a process just like learning to talk, walk, and develop other skills. Forming close and secure adult and peer relationships. Infants and toddlers require nurturing relationships with adult caregivers for healthy social and emotional development. When adults are loving, responsive, and consistent in their care, very young children learn that they are valued and that their world is primarily satisfying and predictable. They learn through these relationships how to interact with their peers and other adults. experiencing, regulating, and expressing emotions in socially and culturally appropriate ways. Joy, sadness, and frustration are just some of the emotions that all children experience during their first years. Infants and toddlers watch important adults to figure out how they should feel and act in certain situations. With adult help, they increasingly learn how to control or regulate their emotions so that they don't get overwhelmed by them. The family's culture affects the way in which parents believe emotions should be expressed. What is acceptable in one family or culture may be entirely unacceptable in another culture. In some cultures or families, it is perfectly acceptable for a 3-year-old to say, "I'm mad at mommy," or "Mommy, I don't like you." In other cultures or families, that would be considered an unacceptable expression of feelings. All in the context of family, community, and culture. Infants and toddlers first learn about relationships and feelings as a part of a family. Think about how different cultures express grief at funerals. All cultures and families experience sadness when someone they care about dies. However, how the grief is expressed can look very different. For example, in some cultures, it is okay to cry loudly or yell. In other cultures, it is important to keep your feelings in and be stoic. Neither way of expressing grief is wrong. They are just different ways of coping and expressing one's emotions. Infants and toddlers learn how to express and manage their emotions by watching others around them. Several national reports, such as Eager to Learn, Neurons to Neighborhoods, A Good Beginning, or the Kaufman Report on Social Emotional Development, have discussed the importance of social emotional development in children's readiness for and success in school. These publications have identified a number of social emotional skills that help children be successful as they transition to kindergarten. This includes confidence, capacity to develop good relationships with peers and adults, concentration and persistence on challenging tasks, ability to effectively communicate emotions, ability to listen to instructions and be attentive, and the ability to solve social problems. So how can we get there? In the earliest years of life, we are laying the foundation for a child's social emotional development, which will impact his or her experiences and learning during the course of his or her life. Learning begins well before kindergarten. For example, when a very young child experiences relationships and learns to express emotions, he is later better able to develop friendships with peers. Or when an infant feels secure in her surroundings and experiences the excitement of discovery, she is later able to feel confident about learning. She then is likely to persist in the face of new challenges. Achievement of early social emotional skills and milestones are linked to positive early childhood mental health, continued skill development, and school success. What helps us get there? We've talked about what social emotional development is and how it develops as a progression, but what can we do to ensure that the skills develop appropriately? Meaningful interactions caregivers have with young children during everyday moments provide natural opportunities to shape social emotional development. Having one-on-one time, playing with young children, having quick and predictable responses, cuddling and having gentle touch, routines that establish patterns of caring response, talking, reading, and singing with young children are just some of the ways you can do this. On this slide, you'll see some strategies for helping very young children self-regulate. Babies like to have swaddling or cuddling. Containing their limbs helps them feel close to your heart, beat, and chest. You can offer and encourage infants and toddlers to use stuffed items, comfort items, such as a pacifier, blanket, or favorite animal. Holding, rocking, cuddling, singing, and reading to infants and toddlers is important, as well as responding promptly and consistently to young children's needs. Did you know that providing this kind of responsive caregiving and by promoting social emotional development in this way, you are also helping to build and shape the architecture of a young child's brain? A newborn's brain contains about 100 billion brain cells or neurons, and throughout the first year of life, many more connections, synapses, between these brain cells are produced. It is during the first 3 years of life that the most of these connections are made. A newborn's brain is only about 1/4 the size of an adult's. Before a child's second birthday, the brain will have developed up to 3/4 adult size. and will be almost at its adult weight and volume by age 5. It does not mean that 90% of the information a person will ever know is learned in the first 5 years. Far from it. It means that in these earliest years, the way information flows through the brain structures and gets processed is largely established. These brain connections, pathways, and structures will be used and reused as learning continues throughout life. Scientists have recently learned even more about how important these early interactions and experiences are to children's early brain development and learning. It is brain development that allows children to be able to crawl, laugh, speak, eat. It is also brain development that allows children to be able to listen, concentrate, control one's impulses, problem solve. New connections are formed through interactions young children have with their families and caregivers. For example, when a baby cries and is picked up, a connection is made. When I do this, this happens. Each time you pat a baby's back, feed her, or walk her to a new place, new connections are made. A 2-year-old's brain uses up twice as much energy as the typical adult brain. The work and development of infants and toddlers is exhausting. This is one reason it is critical that infants and toddlers get plenty of sleep. Plenty of sleep helps build and solidify the brain connections. Ask yourself, how does your care influence a child's brain? What brain connections will be made as a result of your care? Here are some easy ways that you can make every day count to help build those brain connections. Creating a photo album for a young child offers an opportunity to discuss and review the key people in a child's world and help him feel connected to others. This can help add to a child's sense of security and a sense of connectedness that builds confidence. Using soft touches and caresses enrich brain connections in young children. Use a warm, encouraging tone of voice. Talking, singing, and reading offer one-on-one opportunities to build a relationship between an adult and a young child. These activities also help young children learn about language. Most young children love to repeat familiar songs and stories. Repetition is important to learning. Each time a young child hears a repeated pattern, that pattern becomes stronger. Each repetition results in stronger memory. Games like Pat-a-Cake offer opportunities for social interaction, imitation, and touch. This interaction combines smiles, eye contact, and voice, which enhances relationships and supports the brain's ability to focus. Families have repeated opportunities to observe their children over time and across settings as they interact with materials, other children, and adults. Caregivers can actively seek collaboration with families by asking and encouraging questions about their children's play. Asking families to share their perspectives and observations can help caregivers enhance their understanding of a child and family, as well as determine additional ways to provide responsive care. Some ways are to encourage families to share their observations with you and let them know that these observations are important and valued. You can place a basket at sign-in for families to drop off photos, notes, to support that careful observation. Fortunately, young children let us know of their needs and wants through cues or behavior. When we observe their cues, we can better understand how a young child feels within a different relationship. Since families know their children best, caregivers can ask them about their children's cues and behaviors and what they notice at home. Cues convey emotions a young child is experiencing, associated with a specific need. For example, an alert facial expression and relaxed body tell us that an infant is ready to interact. Sometimes subtle cues, such as looking away or turning his head, tell us that a baby needs a break from the interaction. Engagement cues are a type of behavior or communication that signals the young child's readiness to interact with caregivers. Disengagement cues are behaviors that signal the young child needs time for a reduction or change in the level of stimuli. There are many ways young children communicate: gaze aversion, yawning, pushing out of the lips, smiling, eyebrow raising, eyes widening and sparkling, having a dull look or a blank expression, giggling and squealing. Children also communicate by pulling away, joining their hands, arching their back or stiffening, reaching for a caregiver, lowering their head, having a lengthy mutual gaze with a caregiver, putting their hand to their mouth. Even hiccups can be a way a child is communicating with you. Look at each of these photos. How would you respond to these young children? What kinds of cues are they showing you with their face, their hands, their emotions?